What is going on, everybody? I hope everyone is doing well. All right, so this episode we are installing the Fox Shocks into the truck, finally. All right, so to start off this video, let's get some details put in, and then we'll head over to installing the actual shocks. So we are going to be putting in Fox Shocks. The reason why I wanted to go with this was because they're a very known brand and they've been around in the industry for a really long time, and they know a thing or two on how shocks are supposed to perform the environments that we're going to be seeing. And also wanted to overbuild so that way the reliability is there. So the shocks that we're going with, they are, I'm gonna have to read my notes, the Factory Race Series 2.5 inch IFP coilovers shocks. Part number is 883-02-028. I'm going to leave all this information down in the description below, so if you want to scroll down there to see exactly what I said, feel free. Now this shock is only from a 0 to 3 inch lift, which means that we are short 1 inch for the lift. I want to try to get as close as I can to 4 inches. So what I am going to be doing is I'm going to be incorporated with the shocks of Fox Shocks are the Ready Lift leveling kit that I actually got for my first mod that I did for my truck. So that's going to be giving us an extra 2¼ inch lift. I'm going to do a little clip here of all the tools that I will be using, also a list. I'll definitely add the list to the description below, so that way at any time you can just go ahead and just take a look at the list throughout the video down in the description below. All right, so these are the tools that I'm going to be using to do this job. We're going to start here. Bungee cord, definitely going to need that for when you remove the caliper. Number 22 socket for the lug nuts. Number 19 for the other lug nuts for the spacers. 15. Another 19 mil. I have the large and medium ratchets. I have a flathead screwdriver, needle nose pliers. Then I also have a 19 mil wrench, a 15 mil wrench. Make my life a little bit easier. I have an electric ratchet, mini sledgehammer, that's to get the ball joint out, and then a impact gun. Alright, so this is going to be somewhat of a big job, not because it's the swapping out the suspension, it's because it's going to be more than just swapping out the suspension. I actually have to replace 2 of the wheel bearings and also the passenger side caliper bracket, brake bracket. So you're going to end up seeing a lot more tools, but basically what I just showed you right here are going to be the tools that I'm going to be using to swap out the OEM suspension to the Fox Shock suspension. get underneath me because I have to force it in. All right, so now let's talk about on how to rotate the suspension so that way we have a passenger side or a right side suspension. Okay, so the snag here with this suspension is, I don't know if you guys can see it, the lower joint is actually off-centered. So on the driver's side it was fine because the shock was actually pushed forward, allowing the drive shaft to pass behind it freely. Because this one is not, and it's on the other side, it's pushing the shock this way, which is now, the drive shaft is now hitting the lower part of the shock. So before I went ahead and pulled out these shocks out of the box, I went to see if there was like a left and a right shock because I was looking at that and it didn't seem like it mattered at the time until now. Now, I had to go talk to my buddy who is a licensed mechanic, and it was a good thing that I did because I was actually gonna call Fox, but at the same time I wanted to get the suspension done, and it's awesome that I was able to talk to him, and actually he came over to take a look at to see what needed to be done, and it was a super simple job. I'm gonna throw some pictures as I'm talking, so that way you guys have a better understanding of what we did. So first, what we did was we were looking to see if we can rotate the bottom of the suspension to see if it would rotate. It did not. The other thing was at the bottom of the suspension, you have that one pin that goes across that gets mounted to the lower control arm. That there, we were thinking about maybe taking out the retaining rings, maybe pull that pin out, rotate it, put it back in. He was worried that it might be a press-in piece, so we're like, okay, there must be an easier way. So we actually took the suspension out, brought it to the workbench and take a look at it. We ended up finding that you can actually remove the top hat. Now, the reason why this was very specific was that on the top hat of the suspension, which is the mounting part of the suspension on the top end, there are 3 holes where the bolts are supposed to go through. So like essentially like a triangle, and that triangle, the most pointed part, is actually going to be pointing out towards the side of the truck. So what ended up happening was we were looking at that, and then we saw a bolt, an Allen key bolt that was holding the top hat to the top of the shock. And we're like, okay, why don't we just take that bolt off, take the hat off, do a 180 rotation, put the hat back on, and put the bolt back in. Well, that's what we did. And that's what ended up working out. Ended up putting everything back together, put it back into the truck, and we were able to install it. All right, so I measured from that point right there to the ground, ended up being 21 and a quarter. And then I did that spot right there to the ground, and that was 22 inches right on the dot. So I'm actually about 3/4 of an inch lower in the front than I am in the back. And that's basically how I wanted it to be because I want the rake, right? So when you load up the back of the car or back of the truck, what will end up happening is the truck will squat a little bit and it'll level out itself. All right, that is it for the video. That was a ton of work. Now, it was not just the suspension that we did. We ended up doing bearings on both sides. We ended up doing the sway bar linkages because that was completely done. And one of them I actually had to destroy because it was just rusted, seized. So this summer we're going to try to focus more on adventures, and we are definitely going to be sharing it with all of you guys. So we ask you to please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so that way you are notified for every time there is a video. Also, we're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by July. So if you can go ahead, seriously, help us out. Hit that subscribe button. It is free. There's no obligations to it. Definitely hit that notification bell so that way you are notified. Until the next time, who knows? Maybe we'll see you out there.